You're listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast, the longest-running Miami Dolphins podcast on the internet.
We're always in control. And when you say Miami, you're talking to Red Bull. Cause we're the Miami Dolphins. Miami Dolphins. Miami Dolphins number one.
Hello, Miami Dolphins fans. How are you today? And thank you for listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast on this Wednesday, January the 21st. I am your host, Mike Oliva, flying solo today as we got some news to talk about in the world of the Miami Dolphins, as now starting to get reports and rumblings and rumors of who Jeff Hafley is going to add to his coaching staff. So we're going to talk about that. And there's some other stuff I want to talk about as well, concerning all the news that's been happening surrounding the Dolphins here the past week or so. So let's get to it. But before we get to any of that, as always, a shout out to the sponsor of today's show, Caneswear. Everyone go to caneswear.com for the best and most affordable Miami Dolphins apparel on the internet. If you need a Miami Dolphins hat, hoodie, polo, hat, I already said hat, hoodie, polo, shirt, shorts, something for the home, something for the car, need a jersey, something for your office, go to caneswear.com. They got the best prices on the internet for all things Miami Dolphins. Caneswear.com, caneswear.com, caneswear.com. They also got stuff for your two-time Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers, your Miami Hurricanes, the Miami Marlins, the Heat, all that good stuff. Caneswear.com. Also, a shout-out to everyone watching us live at the I Am a Miami Dolphins fan Facebook page, run by the great and talented Carlos Hernandez. If you're on Facebook, please be sure you are part of the I Am a Miami Dolphins fan Facebook page. You don't want to miss out on that. And if you're watching us right now on YouTube, do me a favor, smash that like button. Just smash the like button right now. Get it out of the way at the top of the show. Smash that like button. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. And also remember, super chats are open. I'm here alone, so I love to talk to people. So send me in a super chat. I will share it on the screen. It could be a comment. You can agree with what I say. You can say how much you like the hiring of Hafley and Sullivan. You can say how much you hate the hiring of Hafley and Sullivan. We will read your super chats on the air. Feel free to send them in. Let's get to some news. The Miami Dolphins and Jeff Hafley we're starting to hear rumblings of who might be on his coaching staff and such like that. And Jonathan Jones, NFL insider for CBS, very respected, very good reporter for CBS who reports accurate information, says to keep that for the offensive coordinator position in Miami, keep an eye on the Minnesota Vikings passing game coordinator, Brian Angelico. I believe that's how you say last name. If it's wrong, I apologize. And if he is hired, we'll get it right. But Brian Angelico, the Minnesota Vikings passing game coordinator, is someone Jeff Hafley may hire as his offensive coordinator. Hafley has worked with Angelico off and on for 2 decades at the University of Pittsburgh, then at Rutgers, and then later they were both on the same staffs in the NFL with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Cleveland Browns. Angelico is 53 years old, and he's been a tight ends coach in the NFL for many, many, many years. So even after his jobs at Pitt and Rutgers, when he got to the NFL in 2012 with Tampa Bay as a tight ends coach. Then he went to Cleveland for a tight ends coach for a couple of years. Then he went to the Packers as a tight ends coach for a couple of years. Then he went to Washington, and then he went to Carolina, both as tight end coaches for a few years. And since 2022, he has been the tight ends coach and the passing game coordinator for the Minnesota Vikings. So this is a guy who's been around the NFL for many years, crossed paths with Hafley on 4 occasions, 2 in the NFL, 2 in college. And as a passing game coordinator, that's one of those jobs where you kind of your next step is as an offensive coordinator. So that's a name to keep an eye on there. The other name that's being linked to Miami for this offensive coordinator job, and I know I've said it on a few shows, and our guest yesterday from the Packers said it as well, Steve Shimko, the Cowboys' current quarterbacks coach. He was also the quarterbacks coach and offensive coordinator at Boston College with Jeff Hafley. So many are thinking, these are the guys here to keep an eye on as an offensive coordinator. There are some other names. I'll get to them in a minute, but just wanted to report that. And I say that about the Cowboys because, funny enough, yesterday, Jeff Hafley put in a formal request to speak to Cowboys assistant special teams coordinator Carlos Polk. Carlos Polk is a former NFL player. He's 48 years old. He was a 4th-round pick by the San Diego Chargers. Played with them from 2001 to 2007. Then he played his final year with the Cowboys in 2008. After that, he got into coaching. He did 1 year as an assistant special teams coach in college. And then since then, he has been an assistant special teams coach for the Chargers, the Cowboys, the Jaguars, the Bears, and now he's back with the Cowboys again, all in the same role as an assistant special teams coordinator. You've been in that role for that long. You are probably more than qualified to be a special teams coordinator on this level. So Miami put in a request to talk to him about the vacant special teams coordinator position. They did not put in a request, though, for Steve Shimko with the Cowboys. Now, that doesn't mean they won't. It just means they didn't put it in at the same time. They put it in for Carlos Polk. So just interesting there. It might mean something. It might mean nothing. But now we're starting to get names here with Hafley and with Brian Angelico. Did I say that right? I got to learn how to say that guy's last name, especially if we heard him. Brian Angelico. I believe that's it. So we're starting to get some names here. NFL insider Albert Breer was asked about this in his column as well for both coordinator spots in Miami, offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator. And Albert Breer said, here's some more names to keep an eye on. Keep an eye on Green Bay Packers offensive coordinator Adam Stenavich. Here's why. He doesn't call the plays in Green Bay. In Miami, he would be able to call plays. So is it a lateral move? Yes, which usually teams are against. But here, Albert, he believes that Matt LaFleur would let him go because this guy's 42 years old. And if he could have the opportunity to actually call the plays, because in Green Bay, Matt LaFleur calls the plays. If, he doesn't want to hold back a friend from having a chance to call plays. And it's, even though it's the same job title, it is a promotion, so to speak, because you're the guy in charge of the offense. You're calling the plays. So that's a name to keep an eye on with Jeff Hafley for offensive coordinator. He might go to his, old stomping grounds that he just left a week ago and say, hey, I want your offensive coordinator, but I'm going to let him call the plays. What do you say? And Matt LaFleur, he thinks, and Albert Breer thinks Matt LaFleur would let him actually go. So there's that. Some other names. He goes, keep an eye also on Brian Daboll, who some think he might be the head coach of the Bills, or he might head back to the Bills as their OC, but you never know how that's going to shake out. So keep an eye on Brian Daboll. Also, Ravens offensive coordinator Todd Monken, who I know is interviewed, I think, twice for the Cleveland Browns head coaching job. Don't know if he's going to get it, but that's another name to keep an eye on. And if they keep someone internally, keep an eye on Bobby Slowick, who spent last year with the Dolphins on the staff with Mike McDaniel. He was an offensive coordinator previously with Houston, and someone who Kyle Shanahan thought very highly of. So those are some names for offensive coordinator, and there might be some more that we don't know yet, but those are some names that are out there. Look, if they can get the offensive coordinator in Green Bay, I think that makes a lot of sense, especially if the plan is we're going to get Malik Willis too. Then I think that makes a whole lot of sense, because even though he wasn't calling the plays, as we know, he puts together the game plan. He's very involved with the offense, even if you don't call the plays. And sometimes when the head coach calls the plays, what isn't known is, for certain parts of the game or in some games, he will let the offensive coordinator call plays. They just don't make it publicly known. So I'm sure Adam has called plays before. It's just we don't know when, in which games, and if it was for a whole game, half game, a quarter, or half, we don't know. So we'll see. But those are some of the names here for offensive coordinator. And then for the defensive coordinator, Albert Breer had a couple names. One of them we've already spoken about. That is the Green Bay Packers linebackers coach, Sean Dugan. I'd probably say he's the clubhouse leader because he worked with Hafley at Ohio State and at Boston College as well. I believe he was a coordinator at Boston College too. And also keep an eye on DeMarcus Covington, who was the defensive coordinator for 1 year in New England last year. That was Gerard Mayo's only year. He was their coordinator there, and he spent this past year with the Cowboys. Let me check that before I said it. I'm pretty sure he was with the Cowboys. Man, he might raid the Cowboys staff with DeMarcus Covington. I think he was in Dallas this year. Yes, no, he was in Green Bay this year. I'm sorry, my bad. He was in Green Bay as their defensive line coach and run game coordinator. So he might be raiding the Packers staff. Covington, yeah, keep an eye on Covington. He spent a lot of years in New England, coordinator 2024, this past year with the Packers. Sorry, with the Packers this past year. So just some names there. I do still think Sean Dugan's probably the guy, but look, he might go any which way here. And I think either one of those names would be a great hire for defensive coordinator. Offensive coordinator, he's got some options. And here's one option too, and I don't know if he's going to get a head coaching job. I kind of think he might. Joe Brady from Pembroke Pines, Florida. If he doesn't get the Bills head coaching job, if he doesn't get a head coaching job in Arizona or with the Ravens, and he's unemployed, Joe Brady might want to come to South Florida and just be like, I'm home. I'll be an OC here until I get my head coaching job. So I think the offensive coordinator hire might go a bit because they might wait and see who's going to get hired in Buffalo. Will they go with Joe Brady, or are they going to look for someone from the outside? Who are the Ravens going to hire? Are they going to hire Sean McDermott, or are they going to go somewhere else? Who's Cleveland going to hire? Who's Arizona going to hire? So we'll see. We'll see. I know there's been talk of maybe making Joe Brady the head coach with the Bills, and then Brian Daboll the OC there. I could see that happening, but who knows what the Bills are going to do? Clearly, the Bills had a very bad week, and who knows what they're going to do? But if he is free, he's from Pembroke Pines, come here as an OC, even if it's just for a year or two, that would be a coup for the Dolphins in that role. And I didn't want Joe Brady as a head coach, but as an OC, I'd be more than okay with him in that role. All right, before I move on, as always, shout out to finheaven.com. Everyone go to finheaven.com, largest Miami Dolphins message board on the internet. Also, wherever you're listening to this podcast, Apple Podcast, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, Podbean, Podchaser. Subscribe. Make sure you're subscribed to the podcast and you're subscribed. And right now, if you're watching on YouTube, again, smash that like button. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Hit the notification bell while you're at it too. And like I said, super chats are open. Send me in a super chat. I will read it on the air before the end of the show. Question, comment, whatever you want to say. Get something off your chest. All right. The Hafley hire is, got this Dolphins fan base divided. I understand that not every fan of the Miami Dolphins loves the hiring of Jeff Hafley. I totally get it. I understand it. I think there's a big part of this fan base, kind of like me, that are cautiously optimistic, but you don't have to love it. And I'll say this, though. For those of you who don't love it, I want you to read. I'm not trying to change anyone's minds. I'm just saying I think you got to look at the big picture here. In that no big-name coach wanted to come to Miami. That was never going to happen. Clearly, just look at what happened. And I think when you take that into account, and then you take a look at the lay of the land of who was available and who were like truly people Miami could sign, I don't think this is a bad hire. And I know some people are saying it's just a buddy hire. John Eric Sullivan hired his friend. And I go, yeah, so what? And what? So what? It happens all the time in the NFL. I actually think it's a good thing because now I know you have two people on the same page and there's not going to be any drama or conflicts. That doesn't bother me. Oh, it's a buddy hire. Yeah, most hires in the NFL are buddy hires, okay? And for those of you who are just attacking this hire because, the Packers blew a 21-3 lead versus the Bears. It's one game, folks. If you were alive, you probably would have crapped on Miami hiring Don Shula and been, all pissy. Don Shula blew Super Bowl III to the Jets as an 18-point favorite. Why would we hire Don Shula? You can't base anything on one game. That's silly. And here's the reality of the situation. And I think a lot of Dolphins fans either don't understand this, they haven't thought about it, or they haven't come to grips with it yet. John Eric Sullivan and Jeff Hafley don't have the emotional scars that the Miami Dolphins fan base does. Dolphins fans see another first-time head coach, and they assume failure. Because that's all we've seen for 20 or so years. First-time head coach, he fails, we stink, rinse and repeat, we do it again. Sullivan and Hafley weren't here for any of that. They don't know anything about that. And they don't care about any of the Miami Dolphins' history in this regard. You cannot draw parallels between Hafley and other first-time head coaches Miami has had the past 10 to 15 years. Every situation is unique. Every situation is different. You cannot hold John Eric Sullivan and Jeff Hafley accountable for past Miami Dolphins failures. You, as a Miami Dolphins fan, might have the scars. You might be damaged. They're not spending one bleeping second thinking about Joe Philbin, Cam Cameron, Adam Gase, Brian Flores, or whoever. You may be, and that's cool if you want to do that, but they don't care because it has zero effect on them. Curt Cignetti just won a national championship this week at Indiana. Indiana in football, a program that was a bigger dumpster fire in college sports than the Dolphins have ever been on the NFL level. Do you think Curt Cignetti cared about the previous head coach or recent head coaches at Indiana, who the head coach was before he got there, or the head coach was before that guy was there? He didn't give a crap. He didn't give it a second thought. Tom Allen, Kevin Wilson, Lynch, Lee Corso want to go back to the 70s. He didn't care what Indiana football was before he got there. Why would he? That's the past. Curt Cignetti went to Indiana. He came in, looked at the lay of the land, went to work, and he won. And that's what John Eric Sullivan and Jeff Hafley are doing now. So you as a Dolphins fan can live in the past and be grumpy about this stuff. And I get it. I'm not telling you Jeff Hafley was my top choice to be head coach either. But don't hold Hafley and Sullivan accountable for coaches that were here over a decade ago, or the past 5 years, or the past 10 years, or the past 7 years. Or draw parallels that, well, since so-and-so failed, it must mean he's going to fail. That's not fair. That's not fair. And that's not hopium. That's just reality. Most Miami Dolphins fans wanted Chris Greer fired. They wanted Mike McDaniel fired. They wanted a new GM hired, and then that new GM to hire a head coach. Stephen Ross gave you exactly what you wanted. And some of you are still pissed off. Look, I'm not trying to change anyone's minds. I have no clue if John Eric Sullivan will be a good GM. I have no clue if Jeff Hafley will be a good head coach. They might both stink. But from reading up on them, doing research, picking up the phone, which I can in my role, and talking to people, I am more optimistic about these two being hired than I was a week or 10 days ago. So I can't tell you that you're wrong if you feel these guys are the wrong guys for the job. What I can tell you, though, is let some of the baggage go. Jeff Ireland didn't make this hire. Mike Tannenbaum didn't make this hire. Chris Greer didn't make this hire. I'm not even sure Stephen Ross made this hire. I think the son-in-law, which came out last week, shocking, came out just last week, the son-in-law, Daniel Silman, is going to be the future owner of the Dolphins, running the team, day-to-day operations. I bet you he made this call. I bet you Troy Aikman probably made this call. So you got to have a little bit of an open mind, I feel. Because I would love to sit here and say same old Dolphins. Yes, we have a show on this network, same old Dolphins. And look, we might be the same old Dolphins. I don't know. But you got to give these guys a little bit of breathing room and a little bit of a chance, because it's not the Ireland, Tannenbaum, Greer, Ross that we've seen since what, 2008? I mean, it's not that group. So you got to give them a little bit of a chance. And remember this, since everyone wants to draw parallels, let's draw a parallel here to the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills went 17 years without a playoff win. Now we're 25 going on 26. The Buffalo Bills went 17 years without a playoff win. They hired a first-time head coach in Sean McDermott. He won them 8 playoff games over 9 years. You can have success with first-time head coaches. We're seeing it this year. Look what's going on in Seattle. Mike McDonald, it's his first head coaching job. Got him as a 1 seed. Look what's going on in Chicago this year with Ben Johnson. Had a lot of success. Got them pretty far in his first year as a head coach. So, first-year head coaches can have success. Just because Miami hasn't had that the past 20 years doesn't mean it's impossible. They had bad people making bad decisions and bad hires. They tried something a little different this time. Not in that it's still first-time head coach, right? Still first-time head coach. But the people making the hires are different with a different mindset and a different vision. Will it work? I don't know, but it might. It might work. So, just wanted to say that, and I want to kill 3 myths here as I wrap up the show. There's 3 myths I want to kill. Number 1, I never want to hear the word tanking in regards to the Miami Dolphins ever again. Nobody tanking. You can rebuild in the NFL without tanking. Okay, these guys, John Eric Sullivan, Jeff Hafley, just got their first shot in the NFL in big boy roles as a general manager and head coach. They're not going to give up on the first season. Okay, they've been waiting their whole lives for this opportunity. They're not going to give up on it. Plus, the owner, Stephen Ross, how everything happened last time they tried to tank in 2019, and everything blew up on them. Brian Flores ends up suing them. He doesn't tank. No one's on the same page. They lose out on a chance to get Joe. Burrow, and he's in the Super Bowl in year 2. We get a quarterback who's like hurt and not very good. And plus, then the owner gets suspended and he misses half a year. Nobody's tanking. This organization went through hell the last time they tried to quote unquote tank. And I guarantee you it's not going to happen again. Here's why it's not going to happen again. Ross, he kind of got off with a slap on the wrist, lost some draft picks. I know there was also stuff in there for tampering, but it was also tanking/tampering. It was all sort of one punishment. And he kind of got off with a slap on the wrist. Suspended for 8 games, and you lose a couple draft picks. If he ever did this again, I'm sure Roger Goodell told him, we're taking the team away from you. Okay? We're taking the team away from you. Because they're not going to go through this again. And Ross ain't going to go through it again. The organization's not going to go through it again. And you didn't just hire 2 people from Green Bay, of all places, and tell me you guys got to tank year 1. No one's tanking. No one's tanking. So everyone stop with the tanking talk. I don't care. It could be Peyton Manning. I don't care who the top guy is. Nobody's tanking for a draft pick for a whole season. Okay? Not happening. That's number 1. Number 2, current players. Before anyone else says, Miami's got Quinn Ewers, just play Quinn Ewers, don't spend money on a quarterback. Folks, John Eric Sullivan, Jeff Hafley don't know Quinn Ewers from you or me. They don't care about anyone on Miami's roster right now. They have no ties to any of them. Quinn Ewers is just a guy they didn't draft in Green Bay. He's just a guy, just like the other 52 men on this roster are. And everyone on the practice squad and all that stuff too. Guys are signing to futures contracts. I'm not saying they're going to cut Quinn Ewers, but to think they're just going to, we're going to play Quinn Ewers at quarterback and we're fine. We're not going to even look to upgrade the position is so silly. And this goes for many other players too. I'm just using Quinn as an example. Just because someone's been in Miami for a year or 2 or 3 or 4, you might be a fan favorite. These people in power are like, yeah, we don't care. He doesn't fit what we want to do. We don't like him. We didn't like him with the Packers. That's why we didn't draft him. So don't be shocked in a month or 2 when we get to March, you start seeing some surprising cuts because these guys are going to build this thing their own way with their vision. And just because someone's been here a while, just because you think they might be good, that don't mean they view him the same way. These guys are coming in clean slate. This is scorched earth. You're either a part of what they want or you're not. And not like anyone is like bad. It's like a bad person or they done anything wrong. So it's like, we don't want a player at that position, at that size, at that speed, you're gone. Where with Mike McDaniel, it's like he's a perfect size and speed for someone at that position. These guys have a different game plan, folks. They have no ties to anyone. So don't get, we got Quinn Ewers. Why would we go out there and sign Willis? Quinn Ewers is just as good as Willis. Well, I'm going to talk about next. It maybe in your mind, not in theirs, because they traded for Malik Willis. They liked him. Okay. Quinn Ewers to them is just a guy. Speaking of Malik Willis, this was even spoken about. I mean, this is being spoken about. PFF did an article on it. Mike Greenberg, ESPN, Get Up did a segment on it, or part of a segment on it. Here's the deal. Many people think Miami will be a landing spot for free agent quarterback Malik Willis. And it may happen. It's easy to connect those dots. Let's kill a few myths, though. Willis is going to get paid, but he's not going to get paid like a top 10 quarterback or anything like that. He's going to get a nice contract. he's not going to break any team's bank, okay? He'll get a nice 2-year deal, 3-year deal, and it's not going to stop you from drafting your longtime franchise quarterback in 2027. So Miami, if they go sign Willis, they can go sign Willis. It's not the end of, oh my God, now we're not going to take a quarterback in next year's draft, which is a big quarterback draft in 2027. Like, no, you can sign him to a 2 or 3 year deal, front load the money, and you'll be fine. And for those saying they don't have the salary cap space to do anything like this, folks, 1, it's a quarterback. 2, in this league, you can make salary cap space on like 3 moves. And 4, they can make the salary cap space if they want. The salary cap situation's bad. It's not great. Even with the Tua contract situation, it's not going to prevent you from doing anything. Yes, it limits you in what you can do, but it's not going to tie your hands with everything. You can move around some money to sign one guy and pay one guy. And at quarterback, you would probably make it be that guy if you believe in him. They're not going to be super active in free agency. Listen to the John Eric Sullivan. He did the interview we did with Travis Wingfield up at MiamiDolphins.com. He goes, we don't want mercenaries. I use free agency as a tool, but it's not my main tool. We want to build through the draft, develop, retain. So I don't think they're going to be super active in free agency, but if they can get a bridge quarterback to get them through this year so they're not a total embarrassment, get them through next year maybe, well, they draft a quarterback 2027. Maybe he's ready, maybe he's not. Either way, you can bring him along slowly. You don't have to feel rushed. Willis to Miami kind of makes sense. And yes, they'll be able to make the money. They're going to cut Chubb. They're going to cut Hill. They're probably going to cut Minka. Maybe you trade Waddle because everyone wanted him last year. Maybe you trade him, and that opens up a lot of salary cap space. Even with Tua's contract and all the dead money, you can make enough money here to pay Malik Willis. It's not that crazy. It's not that crazy. Okay, I see we got a super chat. I think it's someone who disagreed with me. I didn't read it though. Cyber Honey. Good afternoon, Mike. How can Dolphins fans get excited about this upcoming season when it's another rookie that goes? Cyber Honey. They could have brought in John Harbaugh. This next season's going to suck. If you're focused on being good in 2026, you're missing the big picture, okay? 2020, you could have John Harbaugh, Stefanski, Tomlin. You could have Vince Lombardi come back from the grave. Next year's going to suck. The roster is horrible. It's got like 3 guys that you count on. Jordan Brooks, Achane, Aaron Brewer. That's it. Patrick Paul's okay. Waddle's good. Not great, good. I mean, you ain't got nothing on this route. Your secondary's horrible. Okay, you got 1 wide receiver to speak of. You got no quarterback. Next year, so if your whole thing is we would have, through John Harbaugh, $50 million a year to be your head coach, next year was still going to suck because you got the same crappy roster. This is a 2 to 3 year rebuild. It's a slow burn. You got to think big picture. Chess, not checkers. They could have, I don't care who they signed a head coach, first year head coach or someone who's won coach of the year for 15 years in a row. Next year's going to suck. You got to make your peace with that. We're going to win 4 or 5 games next year. Maybe. It's going to suck because Chris Greer and Mike McDaniel ran this thing, sorry for swearing, into the fucking ground so deep, it's going to take years to get out of. This isn't a 1-year turnaround, okay? This is a many-year turnaround. So don't get excited for next year. It's going to be tough for me to get excited for next year. Next year is going to be about playing a lot of young kids. We got 5 picks in the top 90. We got a lot of young kids we drafted last year. Let's see if they improve, if they get better. But they're not going to win a lot of games next year. And that doesn't matter if it's a first-year head coach, Stefanski, Tomlin, Harbaugh, Sean McDermott, or whoever you hired. You can only play the hand you're dealt. And the hand they're dealt is their roster, and it sucks. And they got no salary cap space. They might have enough to move around some money to sign Willis, who's a bottom 3rd quarterback if they pay him, middle of the pack quarterback, but they need something at quarterback, and he knows the offensive system. And you got 2 guys from Green Bay, one of which was the assistant GM, which from what I was told facilitated the trade to get him. So if he loved him so much, we got to get this guy from Tennessee and trade for him. He's probably going to try and get him to be at least a bridge quarterback for 2 years in Miami until they can get the roster so good, then they can really find a quarterback to go. So you got to get off the first-year head coach, and don't get excited for this upcoming season. Lord knows I probably won't because we're going to stink in 2026. I don't know how many times I have to. If your goal is, I want us to go to the Super Bowl next year, you're not paying attention to what's going on. There's a rebuild. There's a reason they fired the GM. There's a reason they fired the coach. You got to start getting it through your heads, folks. Next year's going to suck. This ain't a 1-year turnaround. It doesn't mean in 2027 they can't maybe be competing for a wild card spot. And maybe in 2028 they're maybe competing for the AFC East with the Bills and the Patriots. But it ain't going to happen next year. It ain't. So, if you're just mad because you thought if we hired Harbaugh, we'd be great next year, you what? He's got the same players. You can make him part owner of the team. You can't make the roster better magically by waving a magic wand. So that's my answer. I love you, Cyber Honey, but it's like, I don't know what to tell you. You're not going to win next year. And so, and again, here. So if we're not going to win next year, why not tank? Because these guys want to keep their jobs. They want to keep their jobs. You're more concerned about top picks. It's not where you pick, it's who you pick. Miami, at pick number 5, if they took the right quarterback, they'd be a lot better off. Yeah, picking 1 would have been nice. At pick 5, they picked the wrong quarterback. And then later in that round, they took Noah Igbenogany instead of someone like Jonathan Taylor. They took the wrong pick there. And even Austin Jackson was the wrong pick. You can I don't care where the pick is, just pick the right guys. You guys are so concerned about tanking and picking 1 or 2. It's like, just set a culture. Get a foundation built with this team. Get some young players in the system going. And then year by year, you improve it in the draft. Then when you see someone you can sign as a big free agent, I'm not talking about some guy signed for a 1-year deal. Then you make your move. But it's like, thinking that no first-year head coach can do it. There was 4 games this past weekend. 8 coaches. 6 of those 8 were first-time head coaches. It's like, folks, you can win with a first-time. You might not win year 1, but if you pick the right first-time head coach, you can win. You just got to pick the right one. Jeff Ireland couldn't pick the right one. Mike Tannenbaum couldn't pick the right one. Hickey couldn't pick the right one. Greer damn sure couldn't pick the right one. Maybe John Eric Sullivan can. Not saying he will, but give the guy a goddamn chance. All right. That's all for today's show. Thank you all for watching. Really appreciate the support. Check out the website, DolphinsTalk.com, for all the latest and greatest articles, commentary, videos, podcast, as well as please be sure to follow us on all the social media channels at Dolphins Talk, TikTok, Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram. We're everywhere. We're everywhere on all the social media channels, so check that out there as well. And we'll be back with more shows this week. As always, thank you again for the support. Dolphins Talk Extra, forgot to mention that. Bonus podcast, some about the Dolphins, some not. We have a college football show. We have a pro wrestling show. Probably going to have an NBA show starting soon, a Major League Baseball show when we get to that. We have some extra shows about the Dolphins as well. So if you love this, we have other extra shows about the Miami Dolphins as well. Check them out. We also have a private message board, which is way less toxic than social media. Like, social media is the depths of hell. We have way less toxic of a social media channel. Of a private message board. And plus we give away autographs in contests. And if you sign up for Dolphins Talk Extra, patreon.com/DolphinsTalk, you have a chance to win autograph helmets, autograph jerseys of former Dolphins players, or sometimes current Dolphins players. So patreon.com/DolphinsTalk. Everyone have a great day. We'll talk to you again after a while. And as always, when you're out there on the streets, please be sure to put an end to highway profanity.